Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Voice of Guo news forecast on May 11, 2020. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and click the bell so you will know the next time we upload a video. Now, let's look at some stories in China. Number 1. Hong Kong police rampaging on Mother's Day. Last night on May the 10th, 2020, Hong Kong police arrested many at Wangjiao district. Today, on May 11th, 1 a.m., Hong Kong police rushed into a public restroom located in Wangjiao district. Some came out from the women's restroom and were sent to hospital. The police arrested several dozen more. Later, 4 tourist buses came and took these people away. Inside sources claim that staff from China's National Security Department and security agents from mainland China participated in the arrest. And the arrested people might have been sent to mainland China. A Hong Kong mother was crying at the scene, begging the police to release her 2 daughters. She claimed that her 12-year-old and 14-year-old daughters were with her celebrating Mother's Day and had a really late dinner. Then they ran into this police operation and was separated from each other, but later the Hong Kong police had detained her daughters anyway. News number 2. Hong Kong citizens getting illegally arrested for absolutely no reason. 200 people were arrested at Wangjiao district last night and were taken back to the police station for questioning. Most people bailed out the next morning. Mr. Du, who was one of the arrested, has been really explicit about what happened last night. Quote, "They were abusing citizens, arresting people on the street with no cause." Quote, Mr. Du said that what the police had done was definitely illegal. He was captured without warning after dinner at Wangjiao District, Garden Street. They even arrested someone who were just getting off a taxi. Without a word, they pinned you to the ground and searched for ID. Mr. Du claimed that another 50 people had been arrested when he was taken, but more people would have been arrested. I knew that many who were arrested at Garden Street and Soil Sauce Street were actually first aid staffs. There were probably over 200 people being arrested. The youngest among them was only an 11-year-old child who was just walking down the street. Number 3. Wuhan City unlocked after 1 month and back to square one. 6 confirmed cases in Dongyuan residential community in 2 days. Officials were quickly fired. Confirmed cases in residential communities across Wuhan, Hubei have exploded again. In Sanmin community of Changqing Street in East Xihu district of the city, there were 6 new confirmed cases within 2 days, involving 2 couples. The authorities announced today that the Secretary of District Street Committee, Qinjie Street Committee, was removed from office due to poor virus management control. According to information released by Hubei Health Commission, since the official reopened Wuhan on April 8th, the records of month on without new cases have been broken, and community infection groups have appeared again. Yesterday, the Hubei Health Commission announced that an 89-year-old patient named Gao was diagnosed in Sanmin community on Changqing Street in East Xihu district. Today, the Hubei Health and Welfare Committee announced 5 more confirmed cases. Among them, case 1 is an 81-year-old woman named Wang, who was the wife of an old man who was the wife of the old man Gao, who was identified yesterday. On May 7, Gao's nucleic acid test was positive, and the wife was arranged to be isolated and tested for coronavirus as she was his close contact. The test result was positive and she was reported as asymptomatic, but she was later accepted as a confirmed case. Case number 2 is a 76-year-old man named Zhang. On May 5th, the patient was accompanied by community staff to East Xihu District People's Hospital due to physical discomfort. On May 6th, the nucleic acid test was positive and he was reported as an asymptomatic infection. He was then later accepted as a confirmed case on May the 10th. Case 3 is a 72-year-old woman named Yuan, who is the wife of case number 2. The patient's husband, Zhang, tested positive on May the 6th. and the patient was placed in isolation as his close contact on the same day. Yuan's nucleic acid test showed positive result on May 7th, and she became a confirmed case on May the 10th. Case number 4 is a 46-year-old woman named Li. On May 7th, she was one of the high-risk populations inside her community. They were isolated for observation and nucleic acid test. The test results was positive and reported as asymptomatic infection. She then became a confirmed case on May the 10th also. Case number 5 is a 29-year-old woman named Chen. The patient developed symptoms such as dizziness and fatigue on May the 2nd, went to the East Shihu People's Hospital on May the 4th. Nucleic acid test result was positive on May the 5th. And she was reported as an asymptomatic case on May 5th. The community will arrange for isolation and observation on that day. She later became a confirmed case on May 10. Earlier, a printed report circulated on the internet that East and West Lake Disease Control Center recommended close management of Changqing Street's Sanming residential community for 14 days. However, a staff member who manages the residential community claimed that nucleic acid testing of the community has begun in batches the day before yesterday, and some residents have obtained the test reports. As for whether it will be totally locked down for 14 days, the staff member said that if the residents' nucleic acid test shows negative, the body temperatures are normal, they can enter and leave the community with their work certificate. News number 4. Wuhan citizens who went to City Hall to seek justice for daughter who was killed by CCTV virus was later arrested by local police. On May 11th, a woman arrived at the door of Wuhan Municipal Bureau to seek justice for her daughter who was killed by the CCP virus. She held a banner in her hands that showed, quote, "The government concealed the truth of the epidemic, and Chinese Communist Party forcefully took away the personal properties of the deceased family's member during an arrest." Family members of the deceased called for help many times, but were eventually taken away by the police anyway since they were outnumbered. Wuhan local disclosed in the WeChat group that the government did not communicate with the residents and transfer the urns of the patient's ashes who died of the CCP virus under the table, and did not provide any explanation on how their loved ones have died. There is absolutely no rule of law. And here are the news. And I will pass on to my colleague Alice for the next news.
Okay, thank you, Mandarin. So now let's continue talking about the news in Hong Kong. Singing protests broke out in shopping malls at Pacific Shopping Mall in Hong Kong. Protesters also take the chance to Kulong Town Local in Mokong, as well as spots in Causeway Bay and Sha Tin, among others. Hong Kong anti-riot police came into the mall and dispersed crowd and threatened the protesters and shoppers with police gathering ban. Protesters sang "Glory to Hong Kong" and chanted the slogan "Liberate Hong Kong, Revolution Now," 5 demands, not one less. Shoppers and protesters were issued tickets and ordered to leave. Hong Kong police fired multiple pepper spray pellets without warning. Multiple people at the mall were injured as a result. And now let's move on to another news about CCP. 3 ambulances were fully packed with more than 20 people with the CCP virus from a local hotel of Liu Duqiao in Wuhan. The head of local district was fired due to the recent outbreak in the local community. So now let's move on back to Hong Kong. The situation is getting worse and worse. On the site of Hong Kong protest on May 10th, a mother and her 2 daughters had midnight snack, yet those 2 daughters were taken by black cops for no reason. This mother shouted for hours, but no policeman had explained anything about it. One of these 2 poor kids was only 12, and the other one is only 14, who has asthma. Seriously, would anyone even consider those children as a threat? Just like what the mother was shouting, there's absolutely no rules of laws in Hong Kong, and we could only hope the mother could get her children back. And now let's move on to the last news of today. So an 18-year-old girl was in Hong Kong last night. She said that the police had raised up the blue flag for 4 times and there were hundreds of people arrested by the police, including 20 girls, according to her words. And there were more than 100 people arrested in Hong Kong Divisional Police Station, and for hours they had no choice but to sleep on the floor. When some of those needed to change their clothes, the police refused and said those clothes were evidence. So she was sent to the station at midnight, and the police was hot-headed. She claimed that she had seen several men beaten up by those black cops, and now she was accused for illegal gathering. When she finally walked out of the police station, one of 2 male friends waiting for her hugged her, and they left together. Another mom of a 14-year-old boy visited her son, who was arrested in this station too, and she was told by the police that there were still several documents and processes to deal with, so she'd better go back home and wait for the notice from the police. When asked about her son arrested and whether she'd blame him, this mother sighed and said, "Whom to blame? No, only the time he's bought into." Mrs. Chen came to the same station to visit her daughter because she was needed to take some medicine on time. She found her daughter through the navigation on her daughter's phone, and because she had been arrested for a whole night, the mother brought some clothes and food to the station hoping to deliver to her daughter, but the police said no medicine, no clothes. If her daughter had some health problem, she'd be taken to the doctor automatically. But the mother worried if her daughter would be too scared to even mention her health condition, so she asked if she could see her daughter for once, but the police refused. Instead, the police asked her how she could be so sure that her daughter was arrested here, and the mother gave him the name of her daughter in order to see whether they could go through the system to check it out. Yet, the police claimed that they had no such materials, and they only accepted the phone calls from parents who must say the right name and then got in. The mother constantly asked for a visit to give her daughter the medicine she needed and be sure that she's safe, but failed. Xiao Hai, a 19-year-old young woman, was cursed by Hong Kong police who yelled, and here I quote, "What are you looking at, you whore? Do you want it to be raped?" And she's not only the girl that police had verbally insulted. And as for her father, he was arrested at night when he was walking with her daughter back then and sent to the hospital this morning from detention room. He doubted if he had had a stroke, saying that half of his face was paralyzed, and even though he's old and sometimes toothache, but has never fainted or lost consciousness. So that's all the news for today, and see you next